Hi, it's Anne-Louise. I'm here with the third chapter of Santa's Moonbeam, and I remember just where we left off. Timothy, the elf, was walking down the path through Santa's workshops, and I was following him with my brother and my sister and the dog behind. Timothy was taking us to another workshop, and we didn't know which one it was going to be. This time, we walked down that main path, and then we turned off to the right, towards another one of the little tiny houses with the lights all on the window panes and the smoke curling from the chimney. But this one smelled kind of like my grandmother's spaghetti gravy. I could almost taste the meatballs. I was kind of feeling hungry. Timothy walked right up to the door with us behind him, and he knocked, and the door was opened by another elf, and this elf was all dressed in green from his head to his foot. He had a big smile on his face, and he said, "Welcome, children. My name is Oregano, and my workshop is the Arts and Crafts Workshop. There are so many things here for you to do." He welcomed us inside, and there were little cases all around the little tiny room, and they had modeling clay and paints and crayons and Lincoln logs and things to make paper mache and coloring books and things to make, those little sticks that you could play the stick game with. And we were looking at all this. We weren't actually that excited about it, to tell you the truth, until Oregano said, "Well, children, I think I have some more things to show you in the back." And we followed Oregano to the back of the workshop. Another curtain. He pulled it aside, and another enormous room. On one wall, there was a giant piece of white paper. On one side of the room, there were great big pots, like so big we'd have to climb a ladder to look into them. And another side of the room, crayons as big as we were. Another part of the room, there was modeling clay, all the colors you can imagine. And Oregano said, "Well, you children can create whatever you want." And my brother said, "Well, I want to be a painter, but how can I paint on that big wall?" "Oh," Oregano said, "we have paintbrushes that are remote control." And suddenly, in front of that big white wall, there were all these pots of paint and a great big paintbrush. Oregano took us over there and he gave the control to my brother. "Now press this button, it picks up a paintbrush. Press this button, it'll dip it in a pot. Press that button, you can make it paint on that piece of paper." My brother couldn't stop grinning. He started straight away with that remote control paintbrush, making huge swatches of color all over that paper. He was so excited. My little sister, she wanted to go play with the crayons that were as big as she was, and she thought to herself, "Well, how am I going to pick them up?" But Oregano seemed to know what she was thinking. He said, "Come with me, I'll show you what you can do with these crayons." And there was paper on the floor. Oregano said, "Sit down here and strap on these skates." And she strapped on the skates. He said, "Now, just go over to each crayon, put your foot against the crayon, and the color will come onto the skates, and you can skate around on the paper and make pictures." Have you ever heard of anything like that? We had never heard of anything like that, and my sister started doing that. Well, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Did I want to build with that modeling clay? Did I want to do something else? And Oregano said, "I have just the thing for you." And he took me to the far side of the room where those big, enormous pots were. You had to climb up a ladder to look into them. He said, "This is where we mix the colors for our crayons. You can help me mix the colors. Climb up on this ladder with me." And I climbed up on the ladder, and there was kind of a ledge we could walk on. And there were these big things hanging down, like upside down candles. And he said, "Those hold color, and if we press a button, it's going to squirt into the big pot of wax. And then we can press another button, and it will start mixing it up. And you can choose which colors to squirt in." Oh my gosh, what power. I started pressing buttons, pressing the stirring button, pressing buttons, pressing the stirring button. And finally I made a color kind of like it was kind of like a light brown. And I said to Oregano, "Well, what are we going to call this color?" And Oregano said, "I have an idea for you. there is a color that's 2,000 years old called fallow. I said, what does that mean? Well, it's the color of the fields when there's nothing growing in them, or the color of a deer, kind of a light brown. You could call it fallow. Dee Dee's fallow, because remember that was my nickname, Dee Dee. Dee Dee's fallow. Oh, I love that. Let's call it Dee Dee's fallow. So that was a one color. And then another huge pot came by, and he said we could make another color here. And I started pressing those buttons again. I want red. I loved red. Pressing button, colors going in, pressing the stirring button. Meanwhile, my brother was still painting on that wall, making amazing creations. And every time we finished one sheet of paper, magically another big sheet of paper came on the wall, and that first one went away. And my little sister, she was skating all around, coloring all kinds of things with all kinds of colors. We were having so much fun. I created a color red called Falu red. That's what I called it. It was from Sweden, Oregano said, and it was such a deep red color. People used to paint their houses that color, so it looked like bricks. I really liked that color. Then I created one more color. It was called malachite, kind of like a greeny color, but to me it almost sparkled. It was going to be called Dee Dee's malachite. I was feeling great. Oregano told me these colors would be out the next year, and I could see them in my big box of 94 crayons, which I had never had a box that big, but he said not to worry about it. We were having so much fun, we could hardly hear Timothy calling us to stop. Children, come on, my artist. It's time to go to the next shop. This time we didn't argue, because we knew there would be another adventure at another shop. We climbed off our ladders, we took off our skates, we put down our remote controls, and we followed Oregano to the front of the shop. I just have to tell you that the smell of spaghetti gravy was so overwhelming, and suddenly, in front of each one of us was a little fork with a meatball covered in gravy. Oh, we popped it into our mouth. Tasted just like Grandma's. It hit the spot. We all gave Oregano big kisses goodbye, and the door shut behind us with a tinkle of the bells, and we trotted behind Timothy down the path to the next workshop. Until next time, sleep tight, sweet dreams.